everyone, welcome to the show. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Raising A to Z. It is a YouTube channel all about homeschooling. My name is Amanda. I am a teacher-turned-homeschool mom, and that surprises a lot of people. A lot of people are surprised that I am a trained teacher, that I have experience in a few different educational settings, public schools and private schools, and through all of that, I ended up homeschooling my own kids. And that always surprises people that a teacher would decide to homeschool. And so people always want to know why. Why did I, a certified teacher in Ontario, decide that I wanted to forego public education and go for homeschooling? Knowing why you want to homeschool is super important. I think you need to know why you want to homeschool before you start homeschooling so that you have a reason to continue on the bad days. Because some days it's very tempting to take them and send them to school, especially if you've had a couple of rainy days and things haven't gone well, or if you're having a hard time at home with different things. You can have this moment of weakness where you're like, oh, I really want to send them to school today, just for today. But knowing why I homeschool, I actually keep it a little note on my phone to remind myself and be able to look back on why I homeschool. It really helps me to remember the reasons why I make the decisions that I did and why we continue to believe in homeschool and believe in homeschooling is the best option for our family. That's not to say that I have a problem with public school in general. In my family, we're the only ones that homeschool. We have lots of nieces and nephews who go to public school. My husband works in a public school. We don't have a problem with public education per se. I just think personally, it could be so much more. That doesn't mean that we can't have reasons that are not valid. Both can exist. You can also say public school is okay, is good, and it's going to work for some people, but you can also say that homeschooling is a great option for my family, and that's the option that we're going to choose. And a lot of people have different reasons for homeschooling. Back in the 1980s, when homeschooling as we know it kind of started to become a little bit more popular, the number one reason for homeschooling was religious reasons. Parents who wanted more religious instruction for their kids and wanted more of a faith-based education for their children. That was the number one reason, and it was honestly the number one reason for probably about 30 years. In terms of surveys that were done across most of the United States and Canada, the reason for homeschooling being religious was the number one reason for a long, long time. We're definitely seeing a shift in that. Since probably the late 2000s, early 2010s, we have started to see a shift, and it is shifting away to other reasons as being the number one and number two and three and four and five reasons why people are homeschooling. Some of the biggest reasons are the ability to customize education to your children. This is huge, especially for parents who have children who are neurodivergent, ADHD, autism, dyslexia, variety of learning disabilities, different diagnoses. Being able to customize your child's education to fit them and not trying to put them in the box of school works for a lot of kids and a lot of families, and that's one of the big reasons why people want to homeschool. School safety and bullying are another popular reason for pulling your kids out of school. Depending on where you live, safety in schools can be a concern. There's also bullying. As much as we work to strive in schools to prevent bullying and to nip it in the bud when we can, bullying still happens, and it can be very, very traumatizing for children. And so bullying and school safety are some of the top reasons why people pull their kids out of public school. Flexibility. So for parents who have different working schedules, kids who are performing at high levels of sports or arts or doing different things, flexibility of homeschooling gives them the option to pursue their passions and their interests, or just to have more family time because that's just the way their schedule works. It gives them the ability to kind of switch up, and maybe they do homeschooling over the weekend because dad's off Monday through Wednesday or whatever. So it gives them that flexibility family-wise. And so that's a huge reason why a lot of people homeschool. And then again, the ability to personalize your child's education to fit their interests and their needs. Those are the biggest reasons why people homeschool. So what are my reasons for homeschooling? Let me tell you. But before I do that, why don't you guys go down and subscribe and click the bell to get notifications so that you can find out when I put out more videos just like this one. So as a teacher who's decided to homeschool, what are the reasons why I've decided to homeschool? For me and my family, it basically comes down to four main reasons. Reason number one why I homeschool is I wanted a more customized education for my kids. As much as we try to diversify our education, as much as we try to make education fit as many kids as possible. It's not always going to fit our kids because every child is unique, especially when you're working in a classroom of 20, 25, 30 kids. And so I wanted to be able to customize my kids' education so that learning was fun, it was exciting, it wasn't a chore, and I was able to kind of like cultivate this like lifelong learning attitude and atmosphere. And that was a huge reason for why we decided to homeschool. I'm able to go at my kids' pace. So if they're struggling with something, we can go back, we can review it, we can try some extra practice. But if they're like getting it and just zipping through it, we can keep going at their pace. I don't have to follow like, okay, well, I don't have to follow what's set out for the year in terms of like the whole class. So if you have a kid who's behind, they might end up staying behind. If you have a kid who's ahead, they get kind of held back because they can't continue at what their pace is and how quickly they're picking things up. So I love that I am able to customize the pace for them. I also love that I can customize the education to what they're interested in. If you have been following this channel for a while, you know that I'm a huge proponent of like following your kids' interests. This is one of the reasons why I homeschool, because I can customize their education to their interests. I can do so much and they absorb so much more than if I was just doing what I'm told to do, because that's what the curriculum outlines. Perfect example would be our unit studies. We pick a unit study every month and we dive deep and do crazy fun activities, and we read books and we do hands-on activities and unit studies and worksheets and all these things that, and a lot of the time they're not technically grade appropriate topics because the school has already like outlined when we would study these topics. So for example, we did a whole big unit on space when Alexi was in kindergarten. Space is a grade 6 topic. Outside of just reading books on her own in the public school system, she wouldn't get anything to kind of like foster that love of space. Right now we're doing ancient Egypt, which believe it's like a grade 3 or 4 topic. I have a kindergartner and a second grader, but we're doing it because they're totally in love with it. And that means that we're like diving deep. They're asking questions. We're looking at YouTube. They're so interested in it right now. It doesn't make sense to me to hold them off of that. That's why I wanted to homeschool them, because I could actually, like, if that's something they're interested in, we can dive deep and we can learn. And because we're interested, we're actually like pushing the bounds of grade levels and pushing the bounds of like being able to learn beyond what the parameters are, basically. And then we can also customize their education to add topics and subjects that we feel are often negated or neglected when it comes to public school. Art and music are huge in our family. And unfortunately, those are like some of the first subjects that when things come up, they get cut. When they have an assembly, it's often during music time. When kids have to finish their math project, it's going to be during art time. We don't feel that's fair. And we feel that kids need those subjects just as much as they need math and English. And so we are able to customize their education to include those subjects that we deem important and that we think are a great thing for them to understand. And so we can include those in like more regularity, and we can work with them and move with them at a level, again, at their level, to really dive deep into those subjects. Number 2, the second reason why we homeschool is because I wanted to do more life learning. I have quite a few people that I know that basically left high school with no life skills, and we're in university struggling to boil water or do laundry. And it's hard to teach those skills when you have so little time because so much of your day is taken up with school. And so I really wanted to be able to teach life skills to my kids. I felt that was like something that was huge, that's missing in a lot of aspects of the world. So I really wanted that to be something that I can focus with them and help them learn those things. So we do focus on life skills, chores, cooking, cleaning, home maintenance and renos, decor. Being able to do those skills, I think, is super important. So that's something that we really, really focus on. I also love that because we have more time for life learning, we have more time for them to kind of dive deep into their hobbies and their passions. We can take a little skill, include it into our like curriculum in a sense, and really like learn like all the history of it, how to do it, and really dive deep into it. We're really excited that we're going to be doing some fashion stuff. And my kids are super, especially Alexi, is super into like designing clothes. And so we're starting to get into like cross stitching, which is going to lead into like embroidery. We're doing hand sewing, and eventually in a couple months we're hoping to like get into like actually sewing some clothes and stuff. So like being able to do some of these skills is great because it's just a great hobby and skill to have, but also like being able to like bring in other elements of like I said, the history and the fashion, color, pattern, art, like all of that is just such a nice thing that we can do. And we can do that because we have the extra time, because homeschooling doesn't take as long as public schooling. So we can really dive deep into that and learn those kind of life skills and have more time on our hobbies. And I also love that because homeschooling takes so much less time, we have more time to do learning in environments that encourage learning. So we can do field trips, we can learn through appointments and through experiencing things in the real world rather than just talking about it in a classroom. So we do like visit the science center a lot. We do go to museums, we go to art shows and hikes, and we do all kinds of things where the kids can actually step out of the four walls of our classroom, so to speak, and go out and learn in life. And that's why we really wanted to homeschool our kids. Number 3, less government interfering and testing. That was a thing that annoyed us as teachers, me and my husband, because he's also a teacher, was just like some of the randomness. And I'm not even talking about curriculum, I'm talking about like the swings on like what we're gonna do and what the focus is this year. Sometimes it's all about literacy, sometimes it's all about math, sometimes it's all structured literacy, now it's all balanced literacy. Oh, we're not doing phonics, so we are doing phonics. Like, it's the swinging back and forth is frustrating for us as teachers, but it's also, I don't want my kids to be guinea pigs. Like, I don't want them to be like, oh, things are swinging again, they missed this, or now we have to go back and reteach this because they never got it. Or like, I don't like that it's whatever the government's focus is for that year or term, it's what affects their education. I like that because we customize it, we can find what works for us and just kind of stick with it and just keep going as long as it's working for us. And I think that was a huge thing for us. It was just being able to kind of keep trucking ahead and doing what we know in science works, because sometimes, I don't think people understand this, best practice is great, but doesn't always work in the classroom. And sometimes best practice is not even able to be implemented in the classroom because the government has a different agenda than what best practice is. And so we are able to kind of take our understanding as teachers as best practice of what works best with children, what works best with students at different age levels and expectations, and use that to guide us rather than whatever the provincial government is telling us we need to do. We also love that there is no testing, especially here in Ontario. We have no testing. You have no testing requirements. And I think testing is a bunch of BS. That's a whole nother video. Maybe I'll do one in the spring, but I just cannot stand EQAO, which is our provincial testing, and I have administered it in my teaching days. There's no way to be successful on that test without being taught how to take the test. And to me, it's artificial data. It's not accurate. And so I just think that if I can skip over having to do that and waste not just the week of EQAO, but all of the practice days that have to go in ahead of time for kids to be able to pass these tests, if I can skip all of that and give them a much stronger foundation and much better understanding of the world around them, then I'm going to do that. And so the less I have to deal with like government testing and oversight and all that, the better. And the last reason why I decided to homeschool my kids was for more flexibility. I really loved the idea that we can just take a break when we need it. Like, I remember having kids come into my class who had been gone all weekend to a hockey tournament. I've told this story before, but they had been gone all weekend to a hockey tournament, and they come in and they're so zonked that they barely can keep their eyes open. And then like through talking to them, you find out that they got home at 2:00 in the morning, and then they had to be up at 7 or 6 to be at school on time. And you're like, 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds can't learn when they've only got 4 hours of sleep under their belt. Like, it's just impossible. And so I love that homeschooling gives me the ability to see what my whole week is and my whole month is and kind of balance things out. So if we have a couple days where we have lots of activities, we can take a day where maybe we're going to like ease up and sleep in a little bit more, or maybe have some more relaxed activities that day. We can plan days to be at home and rest rather than trying to like push through just to get all the worksheets done. I think that's better for my kids' physical health, And I also love that it's better for their mental health, like teaching them to do that self-care, to like see your week, take the time to take care of yourself, making sure you're prioritizing sleep and that you're eating properly, like giving kids the space and the time to do that without adding the stress of you need to get through this curriculum right now is incredible. And when we take a mental health day or we take a sick day because the kid's caught a cold, we don't have to worry about catching up. That's a huge stressor for kids and parents. Like your kid misses Tuesday and Wednesday because they're sick. How much work do you now have to do with them after school to catch them up just so that they're ready for the test that's on Friday or the quiz that's happening, but you're already 2 days behind? Like they still have to go to school on Thursday, do all the learning on Thursday, but now they're behind because they don't understand. And they have like packets of homework to do to catch up. It's mind-blowing to me. So I love that we don't have to do that. So if we have to take Tuesday and Wednesday off because we have stomach flus, we take Tuesday and Wednesday and we just keep going wherever we're at on Thursday. Another reason I love the flexibility of homeschooling is that it gives me the ability to follow our rhythms. So we can sleep in, we can go to bed when we want, we can wake up when we want. And what our family kind of deems as normal is maybe different than what a lot of other families do. So like my kids tend to stay up later. You know, they tend to have like a 8:30, 9 o'clock kind of bedtime, but they sleep until like 7 or 8 in the morning. So like it really balances out. And so I love that we can we don't have to rush out the door because my kids slept in. Like we just have that ability to just follow our flows. If my kids are hungry, we take a break. We just can follow our own natural rhythms and our natural cues. And I like that just gives us kind of like a lot more peace because we're not fighting our natural systems all the time. So yeah, it's just peace. It gives such like a nice peaceful morning, peaceful start. And like we can just kind of move through things instead of like rushing to do something on a clock. And then I also love that the flexibility homeschooling gives us to do things like field trips and traveling and all that. We don't have a ton of flexibility because my husband is a teacher. So in terms of like big trips, we still follow the school schedule because he's a teacher. But in terms of like a day trip, you know, I can take my kids to the pumpkin patch or the science center, or we can go hiking with friends. Like I have the ability to like do smaller field trips and make those into a learning opportunity for my kids. So I can just say like, hey, you know what? Today isn't working. We're heading to the library. We're going to pick out some new books. Boom, field trip, new activity. I have the flexibility to switch things up and do what is going to be best for my kids, what's going to be best for their learning. And I think that's just so great that you have that flexibility when you're homeschooling. So that's why I homeschool. That's why, you know, as a family, we decided that homeschooling is the best option for us. And it's not always easy, but right now for us, the pros of homeschooling outweigh the cons. And so we're going to just keep sticking with our why and homeschooling for as long as we can. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video and you want to see more videos like this, we put a new one out every Monday. So make sure you go down and subscribe and then click the bell to get notifications. And if you want to see how homeschooling works in real life, make sure you're following me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.